Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka Podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. This is an anime podcast where we watch an anime every 2 weeks that we've never seen before, usually, and then we talk about it like we're some kind of book club. The idea being that you can watch the anime along with us, and you can continue any discussion we start here with much greater purpose in the world. With that said, my name is Troy, and I can't do this podcast without the people who bring the discussion, and that is my co-host. So first off, we have the, hey, my name is Microsoft, to my, can I crash at your place tonight, Jeremy.
Wow, okay. I'm doing pretty good. I've been playing some Path of Exile with you guys, of course. That is I've finally gotten into the new content, and it's pretty cool. And then also, we got to play a little XCOM during the free weekend. XCOM. And Jason completely decimated my poor 3 human soldiers.
Yep.
That was fun.
Yeah, we decided to do multiplayer together, and then I didn't get a turn, so that was super awesome.
Yep. You got to watch, though.
Then we also have the, if you were a chicken, to my, you'd be impeccable, Jason. These are pickup lines. It's going to tie into the anime.
Okay, because I was about to say your jokes are off the hook today.
Yeah, they're not, we're going for pickup lines, not dad jokes.
I do some great dad
these,
for you, but and when I say great, I mean awful.
How are you, Jason?
Fantastic. My wife's been slave driving me to build this thing, and now I'm not an electrician anymore. I used to be, and using tools was never a problem. And now I just have carpal tunnel-ness everywhere, and my body hurts. So
the muscles you don't need for like the computer keyboard and mouse atrophy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a new pain. And then the XCOM thing, that was they need to rebalance that just a lot.
Mind control is OP when you only have 3 enemies.
So I'd like to tell you guys that over the 2 weeks, I watched the Death Note on live action on Netflix, but I did not because I can't bring myself to do it because I know it's going to be bad. I would actually love someone to send me any good reviews that they might have to convince me to watch it because I feel like it's something I should watch based on what I run a podcast on. But man, I don't want to take that step. I did watch The Defenders, though. Really did enjoy seeing that all come together. Iron Fist is still the worst, but I think he was better in this. So
I've
heard horrible things about him.
A little off topic. I watched a slew, like in a row, a bunch of the released trailers for Stephen King's It, and I know Troy, you've read and seen quite a bit of Stephen King's work. What do you think of the trailers? Do you think it's going to be as good as the 80s movie?
I think it looks phenomenal, and since they're specifically focusing on the childhood portion of the story, which is the scarier part of the story, because the whole point is children are powerless. That I think it looks great. There's also the Dark Tower that just came out, and I'm a huge Dark Tower fan, but I didn't go see that yet.
I heard it flopped bad.
Yeah, because it just kind of it reminded me a lot of the Ghost in the Shell adaptation, just from the trailers and stuff. Like it's trying to get the essence, but it's kind of watering it down to make it more appealable, and in doing so, ruining what was special about it. Now, I haven't officially seen it, and I do plan to, but I'm saving my movie ticket money for it because that looked like the winner chicken dinner. In my book.
So like watching this trailers, it looks terrifying, and I'm super excited. I hope they don't do the When We Were Older, or if they do,
I think it's gonna be a sequel. I think that'll be if this movie's successful, they'll make an It 2 with the adult section.
Okay, yeah, because they had a decent foundation to make something really great, and it flopped really bad back in the 80s. But
yeah, I mean, but it was a made for TV movie. Like, you have to cut it the break.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, it was really good for made for TV.
And Stephen King has a very twisted imagination that is very hard to bring to screen. If you guys know if you've read the ending of it, there's no way back then to bring that to life on the TV screen. People flying through dimensions past giant turtles who talk about barfing up the world. Like, you can't bring that. How do you get John Ritter to say those lines?
Yeah,
that's true.
Hey, we do need to go on to our anime that we watch, as much as I'm not looking forward to doing.
Wow.
Yeah, this time it was me. This was a drag for me. But wow. I need a little help with the name. So, Jeremy, on the top of our show notes, could you please tell us the name of this anime?
Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in the dungeon?
Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in the dungeon? Is the English adaptation of the name, but I know how much you love the original Japanese version, so I've written it out here for you.
That's why you wanted to know if I had the game or the show notes up.
Yeah,
okay.
Could you just read that for us?
Okay. Denja ni dai o motomero no wa machigateru daro ka.
That was very well done, but I know how much even that slight pause you had to take bugs you.
Yes, it does, and I think I got it all wrong. I'm going to be listening to this now.
I think that's
actually, I think you were pretty accurate, because I know kanji pretty well, at least the spoken word, and I was following along with you. You got pretty much all the pronunciations correct.
Oh, thanks. I was doing English phonetic sounding out, but
so for me to ruin this, this anime was directed by Yoshiki Yamakawa. It was written by Hideki Shirane, and the studio is JC Staff, who has done Slayers, Excel Saga, and Food Wars. Those other first two were old school anime. Slayers is like one of the classics.
God. I remember seeing Slayers years ago. My dad brought that anime home, and my mom got mad at him.
So let's go into our non-spoiler reviews of what we thought of this. Now, this was Jeremy's choice, so I'm going to let him start us off.
All right. I really enjoyed it. This has a lot of the things in it that I enjoy for a relaxing anime. So I know I've kind of been hard on a lot of the anime that we've picked in the past for relaxing, but this hits that spot for me. It's still got action. It's still got, I think, development of characters enough to get me by as kind of a light sort of relax anime, rather than something more like Guilty Crown or something where you go really in depth with the characters. It gets a bit more somber. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would say if you're looking to just have a good time, enjoy the fan service, enjoy the anime. It's great.
Okay, Jason, how about you?
It was okay. It was fun. It was tropey as heck. But like Jeremy said, it was enjoyable to watch, or at least for me. And like I've said in the past, I have a soft spot for
harems,
harem animes. And this one has a decent amount in it. In fact, actually, it's got a little bit that I wanted to theorize on, but we'll get to that. So it's spoilery, but not. Yeah, so that's good.
So I'm in the negative zone for this one, like I was kind of mentioning. The tropes, it might have something to do with the fact that we watch an anime every 2 weeks now, and the tropes might just be wearing me down extra hard.
No.
But a tropey anime can still be good if it has really strong characters and really strong story, and I couldn't latch on to either of those in this one. For me, I do think there are some bright spots in it, some really good action scenes, but I didn't feel like there were enough action scenes for a fantasy anime about dungeon crawling. I just felt like we missed too many battles. I think you can find a better material if you're looking for this type of anime in something like Sword Art Online, which isn't even that good of an anime, but I felt it did all of these things this anime is trying to do better. And that's not even a high bar to get over. At least the first story arc. Anyone wants to stop
the first
for
season.
online after the first story arc. That I approve.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. Before we go into our spoiler section, guys, what did you think about the opening and closing theme songs?
They were okay. I actually went back and listened to them before we did this because, like I mentioned last time, it's not a really strong spot for me. If it doesn't catch me right off the bat, I tend to just skip it every time. And they were okay, but they were nothing great. In the mini-sode coming up, maybe we'll talk a little more about some of the ones that I really liked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spoiler.
Jason, how about you?
Not memorable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else to say about them.
I do want to point out one thing. There's one part I liked because I watch almost every theme every time. I did skip a lot of the endings on this one. I didn't really enjoy the ending part. The opening was fine, but there's one part I loved, which is where they were brushing their teeth and they're wiggling back.
Yeah.
I love that scene for just that in its self-contained moment. It's a really just beautiful scene.
I told Tanya, she was sitting next to me at her computer, and I said, hey, this is how we're going to brush our teeth from now on.
There you go. Leadership goals.
She started laughing. It was good.
Okay, so now is your spoiler warning. We're going to get into the anime, and based on our different opinions on it, there's probably going to be lots of debate, so we're going to get into the plot and the characters and our different theories. We would love for you to come along with us if you've already seen it, or if you don't care about spoilers, but you do need to know all will be revealed from this point on. And we start in a world that is basically a video game world. It never specifically says so, but everything seems to follow video game, especially like MMO rules. And we're given the backstory of the gods and goddesses, and they tend to be Greek gods and goddesses. Mostly. This got bored and decided to come live with humanity, who they call the children. And they gave up their divine power. And I'm kind of we'll get into this of like what is their power still. But basically, they're quest givers or head of guilds in a video game. What would you guys compare them to?
I'd call them patrons. Essentially, like they are the ones that are making sure that their children, they call them, are cared for and they've got a place to return to, even though the children earn all the money once they go out there. Mm-hmm. They kind of manage the expenditures, getting them their equipment and things like that, or at least an allowance.
Felt very much like Elder Scroll lore as far as the gods, if they came down. So like Vivek living amongst, in the Red Mountain, kind of felt like that. You've got this source of power that doesn't do a ton in the real world, but has a base. So in this, it's a familia. In other games like Elder Scrolls, it'd be like worship or religion or some sort of deity, but that's what it kind of reflected for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're introduced to our main character who is in what is called the dungeon. And it's like his first day in the dungeon, and he rushed to a super deep part to start with, and he's getting attacked by a giant minotaur, and he's going to die, but a female soldier saves him, or a female warrior. This is our main character, Belle. So let's go ahead and get into this guy, because I have some thoughts.
All right. Well, I enjoyed Belle as a character. Some stuff doesn't come to light until the very end. I'll let Jason talk about it because it has to do with his theory. But as far as his behavior throughout, he had a pleasant obliviousness that I had forgotten since it's been so long since I've watched a harem anime. And I didn't even realize that's where this was going. But as things progress, he maintains this obliviousness, and he's got this sort of innocent infatuation that he gets for this girl. And I love some of the way that they present that innocence. There's particularly a couple of scenes where they're emphasizing it by having him go through a training montage with her, and he keeps getting knocked out. She keeps knocking him out, and then he just keeps waking up on her lap and then sitting up in terror and running away and then knocked out again.
I do love Belle's scream. Belle's panic scream.
Oh, it's so
should
good.
be a ringtone.
Yeah.
I won't try to emulate it for everyone's ear's sake, but it is a great terror scream.
Yeah, but he is definitely the I want to be the hero trope. Sort of the hero's journey trope, really, in many ways. But he's
is he though? Well, I'll let Jason go, and then I'll say my part.
Okay. But I liked him as a character in the sense of I thought he was a fun way to watch the trope.
His perpetual ignorance and innocence, and also his just overwhelming naivety about the world and where he was in, but then is able to flip this switch into I'm serious mode was really nauseating to watch for an entire season. Past that, I actually kind of enjoyed his character filling in that harem lead, male lead. He had his moments where, I'm going to step up, be the hero. He had his, I'm terrified of girls, and I'm oblivious to the ones that like me. Run of the, I don't know. I like the main lead in Sekirei better. I just, yeah.
I mean, harem main characters don't have a whole lot to do except for be the object of affection. There needs to be a drawing source, a kindness, and besides one character I saw that he earned it, I kind of wasn't feeling that he was main harem material.
Maybe that's what it was in.
I totally agree that it was undeserved.
And as for Jeremy's part about the hero's journey, my issue was that it wasn't that he wanted to protect his friends. It was he wanted to go find hotties. And then
and become stronger.
Yeah, and he needed to become stronger to talk to a girl. That's not the hero's journey. That's just a shy person's journey.
You do have a point there. There was no tragedy that spurred him onward. It was like a personal motivation.
The last anime we watched that I said was really tropey was Bahamut. And Favreau, though, was such a multifaceted, interesting character that we couldn't even agree what his motivations were. Belle was so simple and you could write out in a sentence what this character is. In fact, the title kind of is this character entire profile. There's nothing wrong with him. I don't actually hate this guy. Or I wasn't rooting against him throughout the thing. He just wasn't the main character I wanted to follow through this journey. The fact we learned about him that Jeremy alluded to, and I do want to say that for Jason because it ties into his theory, that is one of the most interesting things about him. It's said in the last minute of the last episode. And then I was like, that's interesting. Oh, it's over. and that was just kind of my journey with Belle. And I had a hard time with him. And that's probably my biggest issue with the entire anime is the main character, because that's who we are walking side by side with. Now, I stand by what I said in my pre-review. He has glimpses of awesomeness. There's a couple fights where he turns into main character material, and I did like those for sure. Did you want to do your theory now, or you want to save it till we get to that moment?
Yeah, let's save it till we get there because it's kind of a big reveal.
Okay. So once he gets out of the dungeon, he heads back home, and we meet his goddess, and he is the only member of her familia because they mention nobody's ever heard of this goddess. It is the goddess Hestia, who is just this lolly, big boob character that Jeremy absolutely adores.
I love her. She's awesome.
Let him sell her to you, not in that way.
Wow.
What kind of show have we turned this into?
Well, first off,
when we watch Dungeon Boobs. That's
Dungeon Boobs. That's what they should call it.
I like that.
Troy didn't even make that up. Lowly Big Boobs is the name that some of the other gods refer to her as. It's quite funny. So Hestia, I had to look her up because when I heard that name, I did not recognize it from mythology. She's actually one of the original Olympians. And I believe she's the eldest daughter. And so she's the first that was eaten by Kronos and the last to be released. Apparently what makes her unique in just the Greek lore right now is that she's the goddess of hearth, home. She didn't really have like a divine altar or anything. And you could almost say, if you wanted to, that she was kind of a goddess of a place where you could be comfortable, but she was a goddess of poverty. And so for them to create this character in the manner that they did, I thought was very interesting. There's even a point in Greek mythology where Hestia's seat is gone and it's replaced by the seat for Dionysus, which is the god of revelry and wine, and one of her brothers, I believe. And so there's a lot of theory that perhaps in the mythology she gave it up to avoid any kind of divine struggle over a seat. So it kind of gives an idea of the kind of personality she's also referred to as one of the 3 virgin goddesses. So all of those things kind of tie into this interesting character that they put together. The way that she was designed has some of those flavors, and some of them are turned right up on their head. And I think that is great. Mm-hmm. Like to have her be a virgin goddess, and yet, you know, in poverty and everything, she dresses in these sort of rag outfit. I mean, it's frayed around the edges.
It's right up there next to like lingerie, because she changes sometimes when she goes out in the town. I'm like, is she just hanging out in her underwear? Is that what that is?
Well, and the thing, I think what happens is because he starts bringing in more and more money, I think she gets her wardrobe, and then you're right, I think she hangs out in the house in what she's comfortable in, because Hestia, goddess of hearth, when she's home, she relaxes and she bees. Wow, she is who she wants to be. Then. Also, there was an interesting aspect of the relationship that she has with him, with Bel, I should say, because it becomes clear very early on that she has the interest in Bel that every harem member always does to the guy. And yet it is not reciprocated, as you might expect. And yet she gets it. She completely understands. You know, it takes a little time for her. But even the first time that she gets the understanding that he's interested in this blonde swordsman who's a part of the Loki family, Familia, she went so far as to approach Loki, who she doesn't really have a good relationship with, and ask her about this person in her Familia. And things happen there that are kind of funny. But so she truly, genuinely cares about Bel. I see her refer to him as a child. And also you can tell she has this other interest in him, almost an infatuation. So I liked seeing the way that their relationship played out. It actually felt kind of heartwarming and believable to me, from her perspective, especially. So there were other things too, but I've spoken enough about Hestia.
What do you think, Jason?
Actually, she was okay. She just didn't seem to serve a purpose besides, I'm going to make sure Bel levels up, or I'm going to make sure he's safe, or I'm going to get him the weapon he needs in the moment that he needs. In harem animes, you need a harem of women. It was established, like, in the first episode, like, she's not just, in fact, like, she wants a deep relationship with this person. And I'm just wondering, why is a goddess so infatuated with him, which we will get to, and B, it's like this is one thing that kind of irritates me about harem animes, is like they're in this somberness of, he doesn't see me for the person that is right here, and I keep making all these hints, and I keep putting myself in all these situations that hopefully he'll make a move. It's like, just say something. Just say, hey, I like you. Like, it's yeah. Anyway.
But Hestia does. She multiple times calls out, I want you, Bel, basically.
But it's always in a roundabout, hinty way. Like, if you're paying attention, yeah, it's like a brick in the face. But we're talking about this perpetually naive character that can't seem to take a hint. So it's a match made in freaking hell.
So I actually liked Hestia's character. I thought her jokes were funny. I really liked the throw myself at Belle in a promiscuous way, realize how far past the line I've gone, and then freak out.
Like when he came home and he's like, yeah, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, let's just go to bed, let's sleep together. And she's like, what? Yeah. No.
And the other one time she jumps like completely on his face and then is like, what am I doing? And then throws him down because those jokes made me laugh. What I didn't like was Belle and Hestia's relationship kept irking me for kind of the reasons I said. I feel like Belle knows she's obviously important to him, and he does stuff like ask her on date, and they clearly say we're going on a date multiple times, twice in this anime. It's hard for me to accept that he isn't fully aware of how she feels, and yet he's going on about these other girls he likes, and I'm not completely sold that he doesn't care about her in that way. He obviously very cares about her, and maybe I was just shipping them and then getting upset that my ship, was running into roadblocks. But it was frustrating for their relationship for me.
One of the key things about harem anime is most of the time the guy can't choose; he wants them all, and so I kind of saw that too in Belle a little bit, and maybe that can account for why he was able to throw around that term date. I mean, he dated a few different girls in this season.
It felt similar to Rosary Vampire. Or is it Rosary plus Vampire?
Rosario plus Vampire.
Yeah, because you have this main harem dude, and there's like this one girl that they tend to click with and they spend the most time with, and you become the most interested in, and you most want them to ship. But then because there's so many girls that they profess their like, I'm going to protect you, or I'm with you, or whatever, they're never able to choose. Right. And I think they ran into the same issue here.
Mm-hmm.
So they have their scene where she goes to the ceremony of looking at his stats on his back. It's basically video game stats that are tattooed across his back that marks him as a member of her familia, and she's able to like print it onto paper for him to see, so you can see how much he levels up.
I thought this was a really interesting touch just from a writing perspective for the designers of this show, for the writers, to present these characters gaining ability and leveling up in this manner. It was a clear reference to video games and leveling up your RPG characters. And I thought that was actually really endearing because they never came out and said, this is the situation. Having it kind of be there to where I'm left wondering, what's going on? I mean, there's a point where they even say the gods refer to the servants, the children, as players. They actually use the word player. And yet never once does it come right out and tell you, yes, this is a game.
Right. But they do talk about monsters regenerating
and respawning.
They use that phrase.
And respawn timers.
And respawn timers of like 2 weeks.
The thing that's most interesting about this reading the back thing, besides being, it's very intimate, the way she sits on him with his shirt off and kind of, it's an intimate moment. Again, one of the reasons I was like, how is he not getting this?
Well, I don't know though if that's the way that they all do that to read the status.
You think they have to sit on them to do it?
Not
understanding. Do you think Loki is sitting on eyes?
I totally do. Loki is.
I think Loki's asking to. I don't think eyes is.
Yeah. I said, you do anything creepy, I'll stab you with my sword. So I'm pretty sure Loki would be doing it.
I don't think it's necessary. I just think it's like an endearment between the two.
Common.
The most important part, though, is the skill that she sees show up on his character sheet, which is blurred out so that it's barely readable, and she doesn't tell him it's there. And
she's like, "Oh, it must have been a typo."
And it stays there every time, and he never brings it up.
Right.
He is oblivious.
It's basically his feelings amplify his growth.
Which was the one irritating thing about this. Well, not the one, but that was one of the
I was wondering if it would bug Jeremy. So when this first started, like, oh gosh, they're giving numbers and stats literally printed on your back. Jeremy's going to be having a field day. And then the thing that Jeremy hates the most, your feelings make you stronger, was right on there on the back. I'm like, oh, how is he gonna handle the two clashing? Yeah.
No, I thought of the same exact thing when I saw that that's what the skill did. Immediately, I kind of got a little frustrated, and I was like, well, that's not going to go anywhere good. And then the more that they started to play up the video game angle, the more that in my mind it correlated to having a character with some kind of weird reason that they gain XP. And I've had that before. Like, you get a character that'll kill an enemy in this specific situation, and suddenly they gain an extra bonus.
Or you put on items, equip an item that gives you a 20% XP bonus.
So I could see an intrinsic thing if he's a character in a game.
I thought it gave him more power the more feelings he had.
So you know
was
how
it faster XP?
So you know how in Morrowind, when you spend a lot of time doing anything in particular, like running and jumping, those skills will naturally start rising. Same thing for Skyrim and whatnot, right? No?
Skyrim, you don't level for running or jumping.
I know. I'm just saying, like, in the general idea.
Okay, so to be clear, I was like that just to piss off Troy.
Okay. But the same general idea. I kind of saw it as that because they have these gains of numbers that correlate to the actual attributes, but then they have this other category, which is your level. And from everything that I understand, level 7 is the highest anyone is right now in this town. And he's only level 1.
Right. And leveling has nothing to do with your experience. Your experience goes into your stats, but your level is based on feats you perform.
Yeah, so like level 7 is the highest level that anybody in this town has. I'm not sure how much that, like, I wonder if you could gain a level without going up equivalently in your attributes.
Dake saw a girl, I think, 2 years ago from level 1 to level 2?
I thought it was 1 year, but
yeah, I think it was 1 year. And also, your level does not have anything to do with which floor you're able to complete, right? Because that's purely based on stats.
Okay, so here's the notes I picked up. They talk about right when he's at the end of being level 1. He hasn't gone up to level 2 yet. They talk about how all his abilities are S ranked, or all his stats are S ranked. And then he becomes level 2 and he notices a huge power spike. So I feel like your level actually amplifies your already existing stats.
That's
I can see that.
Yeah.
So you level up your own stats, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then whatever your level is will multiply that or somehow affect it like that. And that's how determines how strong you are, and that's how far deep into this dungeon you can go. Because, when he went level 2, it had nothing to do with the fact that he beat that monster and he got XP for it. It was the fact that it was a monster way beyond his capability, and he still was able to do it alone.
Actually, I did like the moment where he's going, man, are these monsters just slow, or did I get faster? Like, that was a neat way to take a look at, like, a video game character gaining stats and gaining skills and abilities, and like putting yourself in their shoes. Like, these monsters aren't so bad anymore. They're kind of slow.
But back to this ability, is it his feelings for girls? Because Hestia is specifically upset when she sees it and then notices his power spike because of his attraction to the girl that saved him, which is Eyes, that we'll talk about later. But she doesn't say, it's not like your desire to get strong, which is something he also has. He has the desire to get strong, and he also has this affection and attraction to girls. And it seems the more girls he gets, the faster he levels up.
Later, she does actually say it's his state of mind that he wants to be a hero.
That's what gave him his other skill, though, is when she said that.
So my theory is that because of who his grandpa is, and we find out that he gets these visions from being with his grandpa and him giving him advice. And his grandpa is nothing but a horn dog.
Totally.
And if I were to piece together what that skill is, it's if I'm thinking about a specific or many girls, if my feelings have to do with girls in any fashion, protecting them, getting them, whatever, it boosts my XP gain, I guess.
So I did not get the impression that it was directly linked to his current feelings toward the girls. I got the impression that it was initially created, like it popped up
because he wanted eyes.
Huh?
Because he wanted eyes.
Yeah, because he wanted, well, specifically, I think it was because he wanted to protect her, and he felt so frustrated that she protected him. And we really see that play out in his interactions with her later, and how much he questions his own abilities because he wasn't able to be the strong one. I mean, he immediately goes and says, but my grandpa said the guy is supposed to save the girl, but the girl saved me. You know, I don't want her to see me because I'm embarrassed. I want to be strong enough to save her. I need to catch up to her. And so I think that from my perspective, I think that was the first time that he actually ever felt that response. Because it was the first time that he was ever in that situation. That's where I think the skill popped up. And from then on, as long as he wanted to be a hero and wanted to catch her, I think that's what maintained the speed boost.
I kept waiting for them to clarify, and they never specifically called it out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I do think it's also important to note that she says that she's never seen this skill. None of the gods have ever heard of it. They don't know where it came from or why it's there. And she really doesn't know what it does. She just knows that it speeds up his growth. And even she's astonished by how much.
Right.
So,
but she does get very jealous of the girl when she sees the skill. Like she linked it to the other girl somehow.
Specifically, though, when she did that, she said, why couldn't it have been me that made this skill appear on your sheet?
Right.
Yeah.
Not necessarily why couldn't it be me that's keeping this skill functioning.
Okay. The end of this episode has him going to this tavern or inn that he was invited to eat, and the girl Eyes that saved him shows up with her party, her familia, and they see him or they hear about him and start laughing at him, so he runs out embarrassed. And then he goes into the dungeon and just starts killing level 1 monsters, like you do when you're raging.
Yep.
The next episode has Hestia leaving for a party with the other gods, and she goes to this party to ask a god that she's acquainted with, Hephaestus.
Friends.
Huh?
They're actually friends.
They're friends.
They are friends, but as she points out, you've been a mooch your whole life.
Yeah, that's true.
You suck off me, and but she basically asked for a weapon for Belle, even though getting a weapon from even this goddess's familia, who are mostly blacksmiths, is extremely pricey. So to get one from the goddess herself would be super pricey. She ends up striking a deal and gets a knife that is not powerful on its own, but it's powerful. It ties itself to your own stats and amplifies. They amplify each other, is how I understood it. It's a living knife.
Yeah.
Anytime you guys want to help me with the clarification of this really big weapon, that'd be great.
So I don't actually think it's that vague. The knife is attuned to Hestia's family, specifically to him. I don't know if it would work on anyone else that's a part of the family, but it's definitely attuned to Belle. And it basically is like an enchanted weapon that gets better as you level up. That's the sum of it.
Do you think Hestia should be actively searching for more members? I kept waiting for other party members to be like, hey, join our familia. And like, never happened. They were just like, yeah, it's just the two of us.
So I went and just looked a little bit of info on Hestia. And as I was doing that, I ran across the wiki page of how the two of them met. And apparently she was asking like 50 times and got turned down 50 times before she met Belle.
Because she's so unknown.
Yes. So it's nobody really wants to be a part of her familia.
Okay. During this time, the Monsterphilia is being hosted by the god Ganesh, which is basically a big monster fighting tournament. And there's an interesting scene. I forgot this scene happened, but I had written it down in my notes where the goddess Loki, who is has one of the bigger familias and of adventurers, meets with a mysterious robed woman. And the robe woman tells her that she's wanting someone special, and looks out the window, specifically looks at Belle when she's saying, like, I want someone else's familia member. Then she goes off and lets a monster out from this cage, and lets a bunch of monsters out, and they rampage through the city, but the big, giant monkey, the gorilla one, attacks Belle and Hestia while they're on a date at this festival. This is our mysterious villain, but I completely forgot that Loki actually sat down and talked with her. That kind of changes who I thought she might be, or what her. I thought she was a dungeon boss.
I was pretty sure it was Freya.
It is Freya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Freya's
feather cloak.
Oh, yeah, the goddess of beauty.
Yeah, and she develops a strange infatuation with Belle. Not nearly as much as the other girls, but she develops an interest.
You're right. I completely didn't recognize her.
Yeah, she also showed up at the party. She was the one that.
I've written down her name as a character that showed up. I remember the goddess of beauty and Freya introducing herself. I never put two and two together. That was the same character. Yeah. She was in a cloak through this entire thing, and I guess you could say they had the same hair color, but
it's anime. Sometimes the faces are hard to tell apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially that's racist.
She's dressed
racist against anime.
Dressed very differently during the other scenes we see her.
Yes, very differently.
Yep.
A little less cloak.
The Belle ends up, they run from this giant monster, and he sends Hestia away to protect her and goes back to face it alone. But then she decides to come back because, of course, it's an action anime. What do you expect? Hestia comes back. He has to save her. She gives him the knife. He finds the willpower and the strength to beat the monster.
So I actually think that the knife is the only thing that let him beat the monster. If he didn't have that knife, he would die. So I don't know if I'd call it the willpower and strength. Like, she gave him an enchanted weapon, right? She boosted
but it did seem as soon as he got it, he still wasn't quite.
I remember him like stopping the full force blow of the gorilla creature just by holding a dagger. He was still
dodging a lot, man. I'm thinking of a different scene, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but you know what? This is still an anime, and you can pretend it wasn't there, but willpower mattered so many times in these battles.
That's true. That's true.
I feel differently, so I'm gonna win.
Yes.
The other monsters are wrapped up pretty easily. This was a cool fight. This is one of my first complaints, though, is that it's episode 3, and we just saw our first battle in this action anime.
It's true, but it's not a shonen. Like,
no, it's definitely not. It is definitely more of a, what is it called? An ecchi harem fantasy
with a bit of action.
And the action's okay, but I mean, Sword Art Online did it better.
Well, it's funny to go to something similar as far as lots of not action and then scenes of action, like Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Those fight scenes were intense, and they were really fun to watch. These were kind of run-of-the-mill monster. I kill monster. They poof into smoke, and you're right, Troy. I didn't find them. There were a few that were like nail bitey, but like
I don't know, good ones. But
that first one where he finally gets the Hestia knife, it's like it. I didn't feel anything was on the line.
Yeah, I mean, in any of the fights, you know what's coming, and that's not exactly its fault. That's just like I said, it goes heavily into the tropes. And you're like, yeah. He got the weapon that's going to be the weapon. So he's going to win this fight. He's going to, here's the monster that's his rival. He's going to win this fight. Not everybody can be My Hero Academia and
I guess that's true.
Change your mind of who's going to win a fight when you think you know it.
Yeah.
The end of this, after he wins, is Hestia passes out from, I'm guessing, powering up the knife. Drained her?
Don't think she had to power it up.
She touched it to make it glow. Like, she did something to it before she handed it off.
Really?
Yeah, she did something because she's drained after this. She's not just from running around. She literally like
running,
drained her power in this fight, but she didn't really do anything in the fight.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that is kind of a trope moment that happens a lot. And I don't think it's always justified very well, but I did get the sense that they ran around inside of that place a really long time. I mean, everybody else had time to take out all the other monsters by this time.
That's true.
So we might just...
She just suffered from a case of mind down.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was awesome. If you've ever played like a mana intensive game, when your mana runs out, it's awesome.
You just drink a mana potion.
Yeah, I was wondering where those were.
Yeah. The next episode, his advisor named Ina decides, you need gear. Like, you can't keep doing this if you don't have gear. So she takes him shopping on a date. She's probably the one girl I didn't feel liked him. Mm-hmm. I did kind of like that there was one girl at least who didn't.
Yeah. There was even a moment where she was happy that he was walking out of the place with Wallenstein, I believe.
Right. Right. Because she actively, like, hey, heard about my buddy?
Yeah.
She does still, like, hey, comment on my outfit and do all the trophy.
I think she's just picking on him. I think she's just enjoying that. Yeah.
They find she takes him to Hephaestus actually shopping. He's like, whoa, look at the prices. And then he finds his goddess works there. Hestia is actually working there to pay off his knife.
I didn't expect this at all. I loved it.
Takes him to the clearance section of the store, even though it's kind of the opposite of an actual clearance section. It's a clearance, old stuff not selling, so let's sell it at a cheaper price. This is new stuff, hasn't proven its value, so sell it for super cheap. And then if it proves its worth, then you go up in rank and you can get your stuff into the good store. So she's like, hey, yeah, there's actually plenty of good stuff here. It's the equivalent of going to like a community college for a haircut. You're going to get a really cheap haircut. You could still get a really good one for someone with skill, but, you could also...
Like rolling the dice. Yeah. You get a really bad one.
He like does find XCOM and missing on a 97%.
He does get a really good set of light armor, and that comes into play much later. But I did like how it came back into play, because they do like call out the name of the maker and everything, and I liked how that tied in later into the story. That was a good story thread.
I agree. There were a lot of things that they could have just discarded, but they actually made them matter. That was one of the things I really liked about this anime in general. Also, before we get too far away from her, that manager, Ina, is that her name?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I loved the position that they put her in as far as a secular position. I would never have thought such a position existed. But if you think about this as what would naturally economically spring up around this weird dungeon, she's got a job managing groups of adventurers or individuals and making sure that they're going to survive. And when they don't come back, that's partially her fault because she didn't outfit them well enough and didn't give them the right data.
The dungeon and the adventurers reminded me of miners and mines. Like, we have to go down into this thing and collect resources because it funds our economy.
Actually, I did enjoy the economy aspect of this. Yeah. You go down, get these crystals, you get money. Now, did they ever explain what you use the crystals for?
I'm wondering what that conspiracy is. Like, what is the big secret?
One big thing I really enjoyed about this anime was it, through indirect storytelling, created this fairly elaborate world where there's lots of questions and actually interesting questions. Like,
does every town have a dungeon?
Are there other towns?
Yeah. Yep. And also, not all the gods came down. Not all of them gave up their divinity. So why did some stay up there? And what's the purpose? Yeah. The gods created the dungeons, too, according to what they said. So why did they create the dungeons if they needed these crystals?
Yeah, they're not allowed in. The crystals must regenerate because the monsters, regenerate and respawn.
And the gods themselves are not allowed to use their divine powers, even though they retain them now that they're mortal.
Some would call these plot holes.
Well, I don't actually mind because they're like established rules waiting to be explained. And I know that it's a bigger universe out there that I haven't run into. Because there's a whole nother series, several light novels.
Yeah, the other anime series is actually the same time frame set from Aiza's point of view. The new series. And that's actually the reason we did this series, is because that new series is airing or just finished airing recently. So we wanted to do this one. But yeah, I looked into that one, and it's not an actual sequel. It's a retelling from the Loki Familia point of view, which I thought would be kind of interesting.
There's another one. I think it's a light novel or something, but it's also a retelling from the elfin barmaid's point of view.
Oh, Ryu?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who ended up being an important character without any warning.
Oh, she gave you tons of warning.
No, she showed up for 4 cameos, and then suddenly they're like, yeah, by the way, this chick's the total awesome and super important, and oh no, she's in danger, you should care now.
Oh, come on. You're talking about the green-haired girl, right?
Yeah, Ryu.
Green-haired. Okay, yeah. No, she in the pathway.
She's coming up. We're going to talk about her.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll point it out each time because there were tons of tells.
Okay, so before we meet Ryu properly, we meet Lily Ruka, who is my favorite character because she starts as like this damsel in distress that she's being mugged, and Belle saves her, and then the next day she's like, I'm going to be your supporter. And supporters are basically pack mules that go into dungeon with you. They can offer a little bit of DPS, damage per second for non-gamers.
It seems her primary role, though, is allow the adventurers to kill more monsters.
Because they don't have much time picking up.
Right. They don't have to pick up any of the gems.
And also, I mean, there were several times where she had certain items that she would pull out of her massive pack and be like, emergency, I've got this, we'll stay alive.
And she was also a semi-tactician as well. Because she was a bit separated from the combat, she could see a better overall picture. And that actually ends up happening a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you guys think of Lil Lily?
I liked her. I thought she was an interesting character. Probably one of the deeper characters, because that seems to be a problem throughout this anime, is a lot of the characters are pretty shallow, even though there's not there are quite a few, but there's other animes with just as many, if not more, that are able to give more depth. Of course, with the super trophies. Anyways, getting off topic. Lily, she I liked her come into terms moment. I liked her just her presence in the party, and good character.
Yeah, I totally agree. She was a great character. I can't think of anything I didn't like about her. The way that they portrayed the character arc that she went through, very good.
It's a little extra fan servicey that they gave her ears and a tail, even though she's not even a species that needs ears and a tail. Yeah, just
don't worry about it. Just go with it.
Yeah, we gotta have something for everyone, right? Hey, furries, you can watch this too. But she is actually my favorite character in this because I thought she had the most character development, especially during her story arc. She is this thief character. I mean, because she comes from a familia that are basically drug addicts. I loved how they alluded to the fact that they're basically drug addicts because they come from a wine familia and they're addicted to their own wine. Mm-hmm. So they force her to rob. They take all her money when she comes back from the dungeon. So she's robbing to save up to be able to buy her way out of this familia. And she's this kind of dark past, seedy person. She teams up with the noble and naive Belle. And I really liked the dichotomy of that. And I liked how she had to confront her perceptions of people, especially adventurers who are always mugging her. And now she's met this actually really good guy. It really bugged me after her story arc ended and she just turned into the trope other harem girl.
I do like how we're now using dichotomy more in our language.
We even got Troy to use it. Maybe one day we'll remember what it means.
Unfortunately, I agree with you, Troy, that she did turn pretty tropey, but she did keep a lot of her features from before, as in like that tactician, that actual support character. And it was interesting the way they wrote a support character in a party to a basically video game story.
My favorite moments after her arc with her were whenever she interacted with the third party member that joins in. I thought, as soon as you took out the harem part, she was an interesting character. As soon as you put her back into the harem, she was just another cog in the harem wheel.
Yeah.
I agree. She does steal his knife, but when she tries to sell it, she can't get any value out of it. And this is where when she's leaving, she runs into Ryu and Seer, I believe, is the other waitress.
The silver-haired one that always makes him those box lunches.
Yeah, that actually says she loves him, and it's so unimportant that I didn't even mention it.
Yeah,
because harems.
Right. She's just one like aspect of the harem. That's all she is.
So I think you misunderstood me here, because I do want to talk about Ryu here. I do think Ryu is we know she's a great fighter and stuff. I didn't feel the anime was trying to say she's an important character to care about. Like, hey, there's so many characters in this anime. When I watched the first episode and they show that intro sequence and they're showing every character we're going to see, and I'm like, how am I going to write these all down? There are so many characters in this anime that they don't have time to give almost any of them the proper treatment to be considered important characters. And I felt like Ryu was one of them. We get one big scene with her where she explains her backstory, and then a few cameo where she just kind of shows up and gives like a word of advice or something. And then in the end, in the final battle, she's like she's treated as like one of the main characters the whole time. And I'm like, what? You didn't, Lily earned that spot. Hestia earned that spot. I didn't feel like Ryu earned that spot for the treatment they were giving her in the big finale.
Huh,
that's my thoughts on her.
That's interesting. I didn't see her as getting a spotlight. I saw her as being a supporting character that was just trying to give what they could in that big battle. Like, she was stuck in the situation. It was almost like because it was forced on her, it didn't come across to me as her being important to the anime. Honestly, I think that they could have substituted anyone there, and it would have worked.
I guess where that thought came from is in that final battle, she gets grabbed and she's the one in like the most danger. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure I care enough about that character for her to be the one that's the one in danger. Like if the monster grabbed Hestia or Lily, I would have been like, no, come on, we gotta get him. But it's Ryu, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I liked the fact that it was her because she was one of the only characters that I saw of the ones you listed that might actually die.
Okay, I can see that. She didn't have plot armor.
Right. She didn't die, but the possibility was there, and so I was more on the edge of my seat for that.
I can see that. So that's actually from a different point of view, but almost agreeing that she wasn't built up in the plot, but that actually made it
Better
more intense because she could be an expendable character. I get that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Jason, did you have any thoughts on Ryu?
I only really remember her because of the last couple episodes where she has a really long, important scenes, and also her bar scene where she breaks the dude's hand with a cup, with a mug. That was pretty bad action.
I was waiting to see like her, like they kept hinting that she was not just a waitress. They did hint that across.
Totally. They spelled that out pretty early on. But yeah, I kind of agree with Jeremy where she could have been exchanged with just about anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I liked the enigma that she gave you. Like you were saying, you knew that she was something other than what she was pretending to be.
I don't dislike the character. I actually wish she had been a bigger part. I did actually like her character so much that I kind of was upset that we were only getting her real stuff at the end.
I kind of wish we had a lot fewer characters.
Yeah, I think this anime could probably do. I think it must be a light novel thing to just throw characters at it, because Sword Art Online actually does do that, and that's what they have in common is that they are both light novels sources. the next episode, Belle and Hestia go on a date, which gets ruined by other goddesses who can't believe that the big boob lolly got a man.
Oh, that was great.
It was a very touching scene, and it's like, does this matter? Does he like her now?
Well, yeah, I think this was, I've mentioned before that I've discovered I like a little bit, like a drop of slice of life here and there. To me, this was the slice of life. That's all it was. Like, it wasn't there for substance. It was there as sort of a lubricant for the rest of the show.
Can we all just pause as long as humanly possible as Jeremy contemplates saying lubricant again and again?
I started to say it, realized how it would sound, and then decided, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for it.
Yeah, you committed to lubricant, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
This is going off the rails. Troy, get us back on.
We're fine. After the date scene is basically Belle gets magic for dummies from the silver-haired waitress. And she's like, hey, yeah, you need help with magic? This is magic for dummies. It's called, like, magic so easy a troll could do it.
A goblin, yeah.
Oh, but it's magic for dummies. And he reads it, and it gives him a really cool, powerful firebolt spell, which had a good little sequence to it of him talking to himself and having to answer questions of, like, what do you want your magic to do? What's the purpose of having magic? And when he answers all these questions, it creates a spell specifically for him, which is a fireball. But it's a cool fireball, guys. Trust me.
Which, I mean, later you find out it has more utility even than just that. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I actually kind of liked it because it felt like a rogue in a just normal D&D game, like, comes across, like, this thing that gives him one spell.
Yeah.
And he uses it like I would imagine a rogue that's just stabby, and like, oh, I need to throw a fireball now, like, because he has just no concept of casting.
Yeah, because, like, the first thing he does is run into the dungeon and just start using it over and over until it gets so deep, and then mana depletes and has to get saved by the same girl who always saves him.
Which just drives him nuts. Now, for you guys, because you listened to the dubbed version, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When he would cast a spell, what did he say?
Firebolt.
Yeah.
Okay. In the subbed version, he also said firebolt in English, and I thought that was really funny because to me that was like saying it in a different language.
Yeah.
It's like casting a spell. It was really good.
That is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get that from the English dub. When he gets back from the dungeon after having another panic attack at seeing who saved him, he finds out it wasn't magic for dummies. It's a literal grimoire that whoever reads it gets the spell, and then the book is wasted. It's super valuable. He goes back to return it and apologizes. And I don't really understand. Did she know what it was when she gave it to him? Or why would they have something that valuable just laying there?
Freya. It's got to be Freya. I'm pretty sure she left it there just to see what would happen because she's already playing with him.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the Lily storyline where she's getting pushed around by her familia, and one of the guys comes up to Belle's like, "Hey, let's go rob her," and Belle's like, "No, that's my friend."
Yeah, never.
That it does, because it seems like not a very important scene, but it actually becomes a catalyst for Lily's next decisions because we find out she is still planning to steal the knife from him. Yeah, she had given it back earlier, but she still wants to. I'm not quite sure why, because now she knows she can sell it, but she couldn't. So whatever.
I think she thinks her hand was forced because she, seeing him talking to the guy meant she had to do something today because she figured he would turn into a bad adventurer. Right.
So she takes him down into the dungeon. They go to like the deepest floor they've ever been, and then she drops a bunch of monster lures, steals his bag after tricking him into putting the knife in his bag, steals the bag and runs out. When she gets a couple of floors up, the same guys that were bullying her before come back and steal all her stuff, take her, what do they call it, a gnome key? Yeah. Basically her saving deposits box, and they're like, yeah, then we'll save you, because they bring ant carcass carcasses to draw in more evil ants, monster ants, and then they leave her to die. And she kind of comes to terms with her death, makes peace with it, and then Belle shows up and saves her anyway, which is my favorite scene in this whole anime. Was after he saves her, she confesses everything she's done. And we find out not only was she planning to steal his knife, she's been taking extra shares of the loot so that when he split it 50-50, she was actually getting like 70-30 sometimes. She was hiding special items, like just ripping him off every single way. And he's like,
even after he was like, here's 50%, and she was like shocked, like, you're going to give us support 50%, and she still robbed him.
She's still skimming the entire time, borrowing money from him and never paying it back. Confesses all these crimes. I thought it was a really nice moment because she didn't have to say that. She could just be like, okay, from now on I'll be good. She opened up about like, no, you don't understand. I am the worst.
Yeah, her guilt had just overflowed.
So I really enjoyed the scene, and of course he does the hero thing where he's like, "Yeah, who cares? You're my friend. Friends are friends."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then she decides she's in love with him,
which actually
weird.
I don't know if I would actually say that that's too weird. Like I could see somebody falling for somebody
that was totally sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
She was actually like, the one.
Weird. A girl falls in love with my protagonist.
Well, or even just somebody who is so altruistic and so noble.
Right.
Yeah,
I didn't ship anybody in this one, but I kind of felt like this was the most relatable. Yeah, I like you in the harem.
She had the biggest reason to like him. Although I will argue for Hestia that
she had two biggest reasons.
She had the two biggest. I will argue for Hestia that she was because she had met failure so much and rejection because people didn't know who she was a nobody. She didn't matter. She's in poverty. And so seeing Belle, I think she saw a reflection of herself in him in that way. Because when she first ran into him, he was rejected from attempting to join another family. And she had been following him for a while from what I read. So, I think I think there's sort of a seeing something relatable drew her to him.
So we now come to when he starts his training with Eyes because she finally forces him to talk to her. My favorite one where he escaped her is when he just somersaults away. He like wakes up once and then just starts rolling forward. So great. But yeah, he finally gets her to talk, and she like apologizes for the Minotaur getting away that tried to kill him, and he apologizes for always screaming in her face and running. And she agrees to train him, and they start having really cool training sessions. And at the same time, Freya sends her lackey Otaro, and he goes in the dungeon and he finds it's probably the same Minotaur, right?
No, she killed that one. Or are you thinking it's respawned?
I thought she said she didn't kill him.
I don't know.
He puffed into smoke. I think Minotaurs are Minotaurs.
Yeah. So he finds a particularly strong Minotaur and gives it a new weapon and basically trains it.
This guy is brutal.
Which that whole scene was really awesome to watch.
Yeah. By the way. That was amazing. I mean, he flexed his bicep and broke the Minotaur's horn off. I mean, come on. It was just amazing.
It'll be interesting when that guy comes back up. But
he's the level 7 when I was reading stuff. So nobody else is as high level as he is. He's the only level 7.
And he's part of Freya's Familia.
Apparently, he's the only one.
Okay. And maybe, I wonder if he has a similar backstory to Belle. And maybe that's why he got so high.
I don't know.
I have a feeling Freya, that ability comes from Freya. I feel like Freya is involved in that, giving him that ability.
That would be interesting.
But anyway, thoughts on Eyes as she goes through this training montage with Belle?
I'm not looking forward to the new series from Ai's perspective because I found her a pretty boring character, especially one of the absolute singular attachment to our main protagonist. She's just
Blank.
like, very blank. She's got a few words of wisdom here and there. She's an interesting moment later on where the rest of her familia is like taking on like these big bosses or big monsters, and she's just like, they start talking about Belle, and she's like, "Oh, I need to go kill something too," and it's like, okay. She didn't seem to have a rhyme or reason besides this training montage and the object of his affection. I didn't find her appealing.
I agree on this. So she's a trope. There's that almost robotic harem character trope, right? There's almost always one harem, but there's almost always a reason for why they are the way they are. Either they usually are a robot, or they're an otherworldly creature that don't understand the world. Eyes is just that way because Eyes is that way, as far as we know. We might learn something in the new series that I'm not going to watch, but so yeah, there wasn't. I was like, oh, you're being boring, and you don't have a reason for it. I did like her background moments. There's a couple scenes where she's in the background and someone will say something about the kind of women Belle likes. Like at one point, Hestia says Belle doesn't like smelly women, and Eyes is in the background taking sniffs of herself, and it's very subtle and very, very far in the background. But those scenes did make me laugh. But otherwise, he even comments she's kind of an airhead. She just there's not a lot going on with this character other than she is powerful and she is the main protagonist point of affection.
Yeah. So I was actually going to call that out too, that this show says it clearly. She's an airhead. Now, whether that's just because it's from Belle's perspective, it certainly is also from mine. I could make an excuse for it in that in order for her to be such a good swordsman and be so fully devoted to leveling up and everything and being so astonishing as she is, maybe she's so focused on those things that she just doesn't care about anything else, except when she's checking herself for odors. So I don't know, but I totally agree with you guys. I'm curious what it's going to be like in the next season. I mean, didn't I mention that this is actually intended for us to watch both? It's a 2-season thing here. We got to watch both.
I don't believe the other one's fully done. Oh, bummer.
That's just terrible.
The next episode is actually a very big episode in this series because it's the one with the Minotaur fight. Belle ends up in the dungeon, and this Minotaur comes at him. Lily gets knocked out, and he's like, okay, I got to take it on. And then finally he's like, okay, I can get Lily away when she wakes up, and he has her run. But then he has to keep fighting. Other characters show up. Ice shows up, but he's like, no one's going to save me this time. I'm sick of being saved. And he goes all out on this thing. And he does a really cool move where after stabbing it a bunch of times and doing what he needs to do, he puts his hand in it and casts Firebolt like over and over and over, which was pretty cool. This is actually one of the highlights of the anime for me. This battle. What did you guys think of it?
It was an exciting fight, and there are a couple throughout the anime. But I think what I appreciated about it is that he did reject the help because he was like, "No, I'm gonna be a big boy. I'm gonna put on my big boy trousers, and I'm gonna do this myself." But yeah, the firebolt. That was pretty cool.
Yep. I have nothing more to add. It was great.
I thought it was actually interesting that he has a Minotaur phobia that they keep playing on. Like he's actually scared of Minotaurs since that first episode. And so now it's not just beating this monster who's been trained to beat you, but it's facing your fears and facing your weakness. It's very classic anime, but it was a good moment.
Not only that, he gets his first trophy.
Yes, he does. That Minotaur horn.
Yep, he gets the Minotaur horn. They do, at the end, his shirt gets burnt off from his own fire attack, and they all see that his abilities are rank S, which shocks everyone. There's a character, I don't remember his name, but he's like a wolf-looking guy, and he was the one making fun of him in the beginning, and he's there, and he's like, this pipsqueak, he's going to get himself killed, and then Lily begs, someone save him. He's like, fine, I'm going to go save him, and I stops him and is like, no one's saving him this time, he's got this. because she's been training him.
Well, yeah, he can do it. He's level 1.
But he's the one who's like, no, we have to look at his stats, guys. And he's the one who's like, man, he's rank S. And then after this is when he becomes level 2, and that's when they say, like, yeah, when you do gigantic feats or beat monsters that are over you, that's when you will level up. And no one's ever done it in this short amount of time that he has done it. He's the fastest ever. So he becomes a little bit of a pseudo celebrity, and he gets his first real skill besides that secret one he has called Argonaut, which is basically it can take any attack he does and make it into a one-hit kill.
Which I love how he discovers it later.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was good. I did think it was a bit of a Deus Ex Machina skill. I mean, it scales to whatever he's facing.
What in this entire anime was not Deus Ex Machina? Why do you call that specifically out?
Well, I specifically call that out because anytime that he's in a battle now, we know that if they want him to win the battle and everything else fails, all he has to do is just point his hand and say firebolt, and if it's blue instead of red, he wins.
It did seem like it had to charge up, like it was his limit break attack. Like
Right.
he has to, you can't just call him out at will. It has to show up.
It's a
It's
hero
true,
shot.
but later we see him use it twice within a relatively short span of
You
time.
mean with his willpower? Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's the one thing that I don't like that. I don't buy into that because if he goes down to mana 0 in different situations, you gotta hold to that.
But it never counts that Argonaut uses mana, and
No.
and in the moment we're talking about, he did not use a magic attack. He used a sword attack, which wouldn't use mana.
But if it was a limit break, then he would have either had to take damage or do damage to build it back up after the first time he used
He
it.
took a ton of damage right before that.
When he was fighting the final boss?
Yeah, he got the guy jumped in front of the shield and he got knocked out. Got hit so hard, and then he gets back up and goes the limit super. So anyway,
Deus Ex Machina.
it's his spirit bomb.
Yes. That doesn't really have to charge that much.
He goes shopping for more armor because his got broken, and he meets the maker of his armor, and that is Wealth. Am I saying that right? Wealth?
Yeah, Wealth.
Yeah.
Wealth Crozo, who is a blacksmith who's also looking for a party to join with because he needs materials. And Wealth offers him an exclusive contract to be his exclusive blacksmith if he can join his party. And they do, and we find out that this guy is part of a family that was a master of making magic items. And magic items are very rare and very powerful in this, but it seems like they're only a one-time use, many of them, because Lily used one, and he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made you use your magic item, as if she had expended it.
Every time a magic item magic weapon's used in its magic way, it breaks.
Okay.
So I guess you can use it non-magically, or maybe not to its full potential. But if you do like a limit breaker shot, it busts.
I got the impression it was charges or misuse.
Yeah. That seems fair.
We do get the scene of him one-shotting the baby dragon.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
But he's trying to use Firebolt, and his hand's sparkling, and just takes that.
It's pretty great because they're like taking a break, and like he's like, "Hey, Sparkles, what's going on with your hand?" He like looks at it, he's like, "Oh, that's weird." And then a dragon shows up and like threatens Lily. He's like, "Oh, Firebolt," and it just annihilates.
Yeah, the whole head's just gone.
But the reason this is my favorite character is there's a moment earlier in the episode where he's like, he notices his horn, the Minotaur horn. He's like, "Hey, let me make you something out of that." And he's explaining why he doesn't do magic items anymore. And I really, really liked his concept that it breaks people because people are looking for that next level up, but they want the item to make them better instead of bettering themselves.
Right.
And I thought that was a really neat perspective on why he refrained from making magic items.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's like he was afraid of enabling them. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
I like this character pretty all right. It was nice to have another male character, just because I met someone who wasn't trying to rub their boobs on Belle, and wanted to like have a conversation with him. That was cool.
I also liked his interactions with Lily. That was pretty great.
Yeah, those were good.
Yeah, I really liked when he called her like Little Lily, and I wanted more of that. I wanted to see more, almost like a sibling rivalry form between them, which was kind of starting, and then we just didn't have time.
He kept calling her Little Bit.
Yeah.
So the next episode, we start getting into the final story, and I kind of thought we were going one way with this, and it basically they decide almost to pause the main plot of this anime and go to a mining accident that everyone has to survive for the next 4 episodes. Because it starts with he's in the Belle's in the dungeon with his party. They're really deep, but they're doing all right. They just kind of realizing like, wow, it's a lot crazier when you're level 2 and you're in the level 2 zones. And another party that's also recently reached level 2, they get hurt. And so they got all these monsters chasing them, and they run past Belle with the purpose of getting those monsters to attack Belle's party. And they call it a pass parade.
I don't think they wanted the monsters to attack them. I think they just wanted to keep moving, and it was just something that couldn't be avoided.
They specifically called out like, hey, if we're gonna pass these off, and they're like, yeah, we are.
In the subversion, they didn't say that. What they said was, we have to go, and I care more about our party than their party, so we can't stay and help them.
Basically, it was the shortest route from A to B, and to go around these guys could put their party in more danger. So the leader felt he didn't have a choice but to pass them. And what I loved about this scene was it reminded me of my old EverQuest 1 days. That was a real problem in zones, was a monster train or a pass parade. Because in that game, aggro didn't expire. As long as you were in the zone, if you got the aggro of a monster, it would not leave you till you left the zone or you died. Didn't matter how far you traveled. So what could happen is some character, like if you were just barely leveled enough to get into the zone, you would probably farm a camp close to an entrance to a zone, so you could run away if you needed to. Well, if you were watching and someone came along with like 12 or 14 monsters following them, and then they zoned, if the monsters were too close when that guy zoned, they would re-aggro on that person and then just like murder him, just instant.
Oh, man.
And so, yeah, that was a real problem.
That's great.
I mean, I definitely agree they weren't doing it like with evil intent. They were on the run and they were hurt.
Well,
but
I think
they were also aware, because they specifically apologized for it later, because they are very much aware that what they're doing is for lack of a better word, a dick move.
That's what I was going to call it.
Right, but they didn't do it with the intention of losing the monsters on these guys. They just knew it was going to be a byproduct of running past them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the only point I was trying to make.
Me too.
What goes on then is basically this Belle's party is trying to get away. They try to run, but there's cave-ins and they're getting attacked. They're losing gear. They're using up mana. They decide eventually to go down, because if they reach the 18th floor, it's a safe zone for everyone. But there's a boss level before that, but they should have already been wiped out, because Eyes has been part of this giant party that has already gone through the dungeon right ahead of them. It should have taken everything big out of the way. So they're like, okay, we can't climb. We're hurt. We're low on gear. Let's go down to the safe zone and figure out a plan from there. Meanwhile, Hestia realizes Belle hasn't come home, and she starts gathering people and trying to figure out what happens to them. The people that created the pass parade, they come and admit what they did, and so she's like, okay, I need you guys to help me. And a new god shows up named Hermes, and with his familia, and he's like, hey, I'm here to meet Belle. I was sent here to meet Belle. And he's like, I'm going to help my friend Hestia. She's like, you haven't talked to me in like ever.
Also, they mentioned that there's like earthquakes going on as well.
Yeah, they have been calling that out. Yeah.
Actually, Hermes is hilarious. He looks like a wandering like cowboy without spurs.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he does. For a little while, I was confusing him with the Loki Familia's blonde-haired boy character that was like leading the Loki Familia.
Yeah.
Because they had similar hair and similar face, which coincidentally, I mean, I guess that kid is actually 40 years old, but looks like a kid for some reason.
Because
anime. But interesting notes about Hermes is in mythology, I believe he was one of the sons of Zeus, and so Hestia is actually his aunt. And that would also mean that, yeah. Anyways, so very interesting stuff.
I mean, I guess there's no reason to think all these gods aren't still related based on Greek mythology. They don't really call out relations very often, though.
Well, the weird part is when you have those relations between like Hestia and Loki, because Loki's clearly Norse mythology.
Right.
And then you have that guy that was managing the pens.
Right.
Right.
Who is Hindu.
Hindu and Buddha, things like it's their mythology. So I don't know exactly what's going on with all these different gods. But
there's a really great scene in the next episode after this where Bell's party members have passed out and he's carrying them and he carries them through that boss level and the boss starts to respawn and he just starts screaming, run, 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 and barely makes it through and then tumbles down a slide, a hill into the safe zone at Isa's feet, who heals the party and takes them in and bandages their wounds. But it was a really intense scene because I actually thought he was going to have to turn and fight this thing. This was one of the few moments where I was like, I don't actually know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Because I'll say this about the opening. They did a really good job of making it a preview of everything that's going to happen in this anime. If you watch very closely, they even show the story in order with very key scenes, him holding Lily with the ants behind him, stuff like that, where they just kind of hint at what's going to come. And then one of the final things is a giant monster just roaring. And I'm like, oh, is this going to be that fight? And
Attack on Titan.
And
right.
And that didn't happen. He gets away. So he ends up in the safe zone. Hestia makes it to the safe zone too. And it's because Loki's Familia is coming back from their big expedition. And so they've set up camp because they have to wait for antidotes for some poisoned members. So they all decide to camp there for the next couple of days together and then let Loki's party go first. And then they'll follow behind him. Now, there's an interesting note. They say gods and goddesses aren't allowed in the dungeon. And Hestia and Hermes both snuck in. But no one seems to care they're there.
Also, they said they needed to keep it a secret. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I was also, I remember that specifically Hermes talked to his Familia girl there.
Asfi.
Yeah. So she's level 6.
Awesome.
She's really high level. And he said that she would have to, I didn't think it was just merely protect him. I think it was supposed to be hide his identity or something from the dungeon, is the impression I got.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, they definitely call out that this is a rule, but it doesn't seem like anyone else realizes this is a rule. And
were there any consequences?
Well, I'm wondering if the finale is the consequence.
That's what I understood. Like, because that finale boss, that's not the regular Colossus. And Hermes made a comment about the dungeon being angry because of them being down here.
So let's go. Let's get to that. So yeah, basically they.
Or maybe it was because they locked it down there.
Sure. Everyone gets together. Wealth gets a gift from Hephaestus that we'll find out what that is later. It's a magic sword, guys. It's a magic sword he made at one point.
Yeah, that's the impression I got because he's the only one of that family that can make a magical item. Unless
don't you just love when anime you had to figure it out by the impression that you got. But yeah,
sometimes that's all you need.
Tell that to Miss Kobayashi.
No, it's not all you need there.
Then they decide the next day to all go to town, so that they go to town and run into some bullies, but then the town scene leads to all the girls decide to go to the public bathing, and which leads to Hermes grabbing Belle and saying, "Let's go spy on him." And it's interesting because he uses his grandfather's word, Belle's grandfather's words about peeping on women is what a true romantic does, or something like that.
Right.
I loved the twisted nature of this whole exchange because Belle didn't know that's where he was taking him. Once again, oblivious Belle, completely innocent.
And to be fair, audience didn't know either because we
No.
know like Belle or Hermes has something going on with Belle, and he's like, "I need to talk to you in private."
He's almost sinister, and just
Yeah, and then he pushes him into the bath.
And actually, that was my favorite part. Is like,
yeah.
Loki's like, "Hey, let's go over here."
I think didn't Belle like start to lose his footing just a little bit, and then Hermes is like he spins around and knocks him right off.
Belle was trying to get him to leave, and he spun him until he fell into the water.
God, that was great.
And then hid. Which is, of course, big fan service scene, everyone bathing. And what was interesting is probably the first anime where a guy has fallen into the woman's bath and not one woman smacked him for everything he was worth.
That happened later.
No, because even that was just self-defense. Like, no,
it was a warning
angry.
shot.
Like, there's always a "you pervert, Belle-kun," smack. Like, one character.
Yeah.
Hestia is like, "Oh, if you wanted to sneak in, you should have just said so."
And none of them seemed all that embarrassed about it either. Like all of them were just like, "Oh, okay, dude's here."
Yeah. Well,
Even,
they're all adventurers. I imagine it's. I don't know.
Well, I think everyone acted at least within their character. It's just all these characters, no one of them were really those type to be embarrassed. Yeah. And so Belle runs away, especially when he sees eyes. He does his panic scream again, which is still funny. Runs away, and then he runs into Ryu bathing. She almost takes his head off because she thinks someone is sneaking up on her. But then she's like, yeah, it's not a big deal. I understand what happened. And then she tells her backstory and shows him these graves. And is like, yeah, my entire familia and god or goddess was murdered here. And then I went and murdered all of them. Which is really dark. And I was kind of like, how does that tie in? Is that a thing that's happening a lot where familias are just murdering each other?
So, you know how Wealth Crozo is from a family that's not able to make magical weapons anymore,
right.
Magical items. Their family was involved. It was led by Ares, I believe. And there's a term, it's like the Rikia or something. It was actually another family that moved in and tried to take them out. Or maybe that's in the future. I don't know. But whatever the case, this is something that does happen periodically. Different houses sometimes have very big clashes.
So are you saying this anime had so many gaps you had to go do some research to try to fill them in?
No, I actually stumbled across it just as I was looking because I couldn't remember the names of all the characters. Okay. And so I was looking at like, all right, so tell me about Hestia and tell me about these. And it gives you back. Yeah.
The bullies come back and someone gives them a invisible helmet. It's Hermes.
Yeah.
Because he thinks Belle is too nice and wants to test him. But they basically they kidnap Hestia and challenge Belle to a fight, and Belle has to fight this invisible guy. And all his party shows up to help. Now Loki's familia has already left. They've gone ahead, which they're supposed to clear the way. So the weak members are still there, and they get in a fight with these bullies and stuff. Belle ends up winning, but at the end, Hestia, she gets freed by Lily, and she shows up and she releases her goddess power, which is kind of interesting because I was under the impression she didn't have anything. That these gods and goddesses are powerless, and yet here she is being divine for a moment. And then everything goes bad because
of her.
Yeah, and that was my assumption too.
Yeah,
she called this thing down, and that this is the reason gods and goddesses don't go into the dungeon. And a giant colossus, they start calling a floor boss, but some characters are like, yeah, that's not a floor boss, that's something else. and basically everyone left. The people who live in the town on this floor, and yes, there's a town in the video game dungeon. Sure, it was
adventurers live there, and they fleece other adventurers that are coming through.
Yeah, basically, and they all, the mages all get together and they start blasting it, but they find out it regenerates, and nothing they do works. And we get the really classic anime scene: going Super Saiyan, make the spirit bomb. Bell, he uses his power first to, hits it, it regenerates. Then his entire body glows. They mentioned limit break. I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't remember what it was.
I think what I actually really appreciate, because you kind of rolled by it pretty fast, this entire episode is dedicated to showing the teamwork of these two formerly opposing factions coming together to take out this thing. Because, like you said, I think you're right that it wasn't...
Wait, hold on.
What?
The character who is directing this charge literally says, "Forget teamwork, everyone just do your thing." So I'm not quite sure.
So they have to fight off normal level monsters down here.
Right.
They're flooding in along with this.
Well, and they actually said that monsters come here and are peaceful on this floor.
Yeah, they were not at the time.
Now everything's turned.
Can we mention one awesome thing throughout this entire anime? There were monster bunnies with axes in their mouths.
Yes, those were fantastic.
Can we give another mention to them?
Absolutely.
No,
awesome.
Because they had to start trying to do tactics, which obviously none of them worked, because they were doing basically our mage artillery blasts. They were doing focused attacks. They were doing pincer strikes. And the thing was regenerating as fast as a Titan does.
It was a little Titan-esque.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
There was, I think, when you were specifically saying about where they were saying, everybody go do your thing, don't worry about teamwork. It kind of reminds me of EVE Online battles that I've watched on YouTube, and how you'd have yes, they are all broken into teams and everything, but they're nobody can manage everybody
that much.
So
chaos.
Yeah, you just have different tiers, and at this point, everybody knew generally what they were supposed to do. So just get out there and do it.
Yeah.
So we get the big finale. Bell lights up. He blasts the thing down to its hip, and then he rushes up and stabs its crystal so it can't regenerate and saves the day. But did you guys have any other specific thoughts on this?
So my favorite scene was where Welf breaks his rule of not creating magic swords, and you see him lose it in episode 12, right. And then you don't know that it's a magic sword on his back. You kind of get the idea.
We've seen an anime before.
But he spends a stupid amount of time looking for this thing in the bushes. Finally finds it. He's like, you know what? This might be selfish. This might be breaking my moral code, but this is something I need to do for my friends. And he ends up using this thing, and the people around him are like, that's just like other magic swords we've seen, but way more powerful. Apparently this guy's talent for making magic swords is off the radar.
Okay, so my issue, we need to start wrapping up, but he didn't break his code. He didn't make a magic sword.
Well, unless that was one that he made.
Yeah,
if he already made it, and his thing is not to make any new ones, who cares if he uses an old one?
I think his code extended to using it.
It magic.
Magic items basically make you weaker because you don't have to develop. The item does it for you.
Right.
I can see that because he did call that out. But it still seemed a little bit of a stretch. It probably would have been a little more impactful if he actually made a magic weapon for Bell in the final battle instead of just having one gifted to him that we're not even 100% sure he's the one who made. But you're right in that he has a theory that using magic weapons is a crutch, and yet he allowed himself to use that crutch.
Right. But then, Bell kills the thing, and then Hermes is congratulating him and talking up to Zeus, saying, you thought he wouldn't turn into anything, and then we get the big reveal that Bel is the grandson of Zeus, which is what I think is the reason not only are multiple females attracted to him, because in Greek mythology Zeus was a whore, but
don't whore shame Zeus.
I don't think anybody could whore shame Zeus. He has no shame.
I think the goddesses were also attracted to him, not because of his plucky personality or his I'm a hero, but specifically because he had the blood of a god in him and a promiscuous one.
Which is interesting because we hadn't been given the concept of a demigod, half human, half god up until this point. Like that wasn't. It was like, hey, there's gods, there's humans. Doesn't matter if they mix. So
yeah, I almost spilled it earlier, and maybe some particularly observant listeners might have already figured it out. But yeah, Hestia, being Zeus's older sister, would actually be his great aunt. Belle's great aunt. So it just makes it a little more creepy that she's like, oh, he's so awesome.
I'm sorry. Your creepiness has been invalidated by Game of Thrones. Everyone is now okay with this kind of level of creepiness. We've embraced it.
I mean, Cersei's got to love somebody, right? Anyway,
that's right. Nothing to do with Cersei, man.
That's great. That's just creepy.
Oh, yeah. Cersei and Jaime's just...
Yes, they are. But there's two characters who are probably almost definitely related who are falling in love, and everyone is okay with it. Look.
Oh, those two.
We need to finish up. My thought was when they said the Zeus thing, I'm like, oh, there's something interesting about Belle. Oh, the show's over.
See, for me, I want to see a second season now because I want to find out where's this going to go. Are we going to see some more personality development for Wallenstein?
Which is really interesting that they didn't go forward. They decided to go back.
which irritates me. Is another reason I'm not excited to see this a spinoff is because it's like
I've seen this content.
What? Not only that, but like I want to know more about that. Like, is he like a Hercules, or did he come from a Hercules? Like,
yeah.
I guess, like I said, when I started these 4 episodes, that my biggest thing is this had almost nothing to do with the main plot we'd been going along with Freya, and stuff. She wasn't a part of this. It was almost just like a industrial accident that these characters got swept up in for 4 episodes before we come to the end of our series. Like up until the Minotaur and getting Welf on the team, that was the main story. And then here's a really bad thing that happened to him one day at work.
How did Freya react when he killed the giant Titan?
I don't remember seeing her react. I remember when the Minotaur, she was like really reacting. Like,
I must be thinking about the Minotaur one. Yeah, because she was having a wonderful time.
Yeah, she looked like she just ate something from Food Wars.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I don't remember seeing her. This last 4 episodes almost felt like filler.
Yeah, interesting.
If it wasn't for the extra he went at the end, which they wouldn't do in a filler.
Plus Ultra.
Yeah, right. I guess for me, I really enjoyed that last part, this whole arc, because it introduced this idea of Hestia and Hermes leaving the safety of town and coming into the dungeon, having this ragtag team put together, really.
And then making everything worse.
And yes, making everything worse, getting out of it, just the whole scene, the way everything worked together. I actually really like that. I understand what you're saying about it not following the main story arc.
Right.
But it's still, I really enjoyed it.
I think I would agree with you if they had made a bigger deal about them being in the dungeon and had called out that they were specifically the cause for the problems and kind of gave us more intrigue into that instead of just really us having to put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with you more there. But that we do need to wrap up. So let's go to final reviews.
Ding, 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 ding.
I'm going to get a soundbite one of these days. No, I'm not. Probably not. Jeremy, you picked it. You rated first.
All right. I am giving this 4 out of 5 Bakas. I really enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, it made me remember how much I like harem animes because I had forgotten. It's been a long time since I've seen a real harem anime. And I think this fits the bill. I enjoyed the simplicity of many of the characters, and yet it gave you the energy and the action to still have fun and not be just bored the whole time. So I liked that.
Well, then you should watch
a little fan service.
Then you should watch Monster Musami
Really?
or Musumi. Yeah. Lost your microphone.
All right, I'll have to check it out.
Look, if you're into snake women, you can't go wrong with anime.
Serious.
They're all over XCOM.
Jason, your review.
I'm going to give it 3. It was fun to watch. It wasn't particularly interesting. I did appreciate the little bit of character building that a lot of the characters got, but unfortunately, a lot of the characters were also pretty shallow as far as character. But yeah, it was fun to watch. It was relaxing. Not a top pick, and for me, if I were to miss it, I wouldn't miss it.
So mine is 2 Bakas. It is not an awful anime. It doesn't make me cringe the whole time, but it was simple. It was cliche. And other than a few highlighting moments that kind of made me wish they were more in there. And again, I walked away from this feeling like I watched a diet Sword Art Online, which isn't even that good. That's like the diet RC Cola is what you got here. I mean, it's still sweet. Kind of.
I remember you saying you liked Sword Art Online. You were the one who told me to watch
I really liked the first story arc of Sword Art Online. Actually, I really like the Kirito Asuna relationship. It's a little harem-y, but he actually falls in love with a woman, and the woman falls in love with him. And I like the way they develop that relationship. It just gets creepy afterwards.
Yeah, it does. I agree with
but it's also widely known that Sword Art Online is not like Log Horizon good, right? Everyone tells me how good Log Horizon is.
It's really good.
I can admit that Sword Art Online is not the creme de la creme when I hold it up as the judgment stick for this anime. That's right. So 2 for me. If you would like to comment on this anime, whose name is so long, we will definitely go over time if I try to pronounce it again. You can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can send us an email, the anime Baka Club at gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment wherever you found this podcast, and we will get it and we will respond to it. The anime we are watching next is Erased. Now, this is a little bit older than we usually go, but I think it's still fine. But it actually has a little bit of a special meaning. When we first started this podcast a little over a year ago, one of the first 2 we were debating of doing was either My Hero Academia or Erased. And I kind of strongly said, let's not do Erased, because let's not start our first step forward with a more mature anime, which this is. You need to know there's child abuse and murder in this anime. It's going to be some heavy material, so probably not one for kids, but I didn't want to start off the podcast that way, and we just never came back to it. While I always wanted to. And I'm kind of digging through the bottom of the barrel through the last couple of seasons of animes. I'm having a trouble finding stuff. So I was like, we hit the 1-year anniversary. Let's go back to where we were all began and go with Erase, because I've always wanted to see it. We've mentioned a couple times that we've all wanted to check it out. Mm-hmm. So that is what we are doing next. So I look forward to that. With that said, I think we are all done. Let's say goodbye, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Firebolt!
Lolly boobies. Sayonara.
Oh, jeez.